Okay, so we're at the welders here. Jason is the guy's name, and Jason has a beautiful piece of property here out of the boonies in Georgia, and I kind of wanted to give you an update on Liquid Limo. We found out recently that Liquid Limo's motor is it's worth about $2,000 now, and it costs about that amount to fix it. So it's looking like she's gonna get a new motor, which is gonna be expensive. But meanwhile, we have the motor off. You can tell here, this is where we're at. The motor is off of the pod. I just got finished rinsing all the garbage out of the motor pod, and so there she sits. Nothing but 30 feet of stringers. Actually, that's not really true. The pontoons are 29.6, so 29 feet 6 inches long. I just unhooked it from the truck, which is why she's not hooked up to the truck. And we have stringers. Those are the parts, the metal bars that connect the two pontoons, or logs, or sponsons, depending upon what you want to call them. There was some talk from me about widening the deck. She is now, well, sort of. It's a long story, but the bottom line is that she came from the factory with an 8-foot deck. That means 8 feet wide, 30 feet long, and then a second story on top. The second story, incidentally, which goes, up here and sits way up here, that deck is aluminum, which means that it has not rotted out. It is 8 by 10, so it's 8 feet wide, it's 10 feet long. So, after a long amount of consideration and some concern as to how much more I can go out on the trailer, you see here, I could move these bunks, which are shot. Those are the parts that hold up the pontoons. Those bunks could be moved out. There is 8 inches on one side, 9 inches on the other, which means that, by the way, that her entire life she's been riding cockeyed on the trailer slightly to one side. You can tell one is bent. I'm gonna have Jason take a look at that. Anyway, I thought about taking the bunks, moving them out a little bit, and then replacing all of these stringers. Now this is called a modified C-channel for obvious reasons. The reason why they use modified C-channel, and this is exclusive to Crest boats, is so that they can get to this bolt here to connect the pedestal of the pontoon to the stringers. Makes for a very solid connection. Nowadays they use kind of an I-beam, which, believe it or not, this is stronger, but there's advantages and disadvantages to everything. Anyway, this C-channel is pretty much impossible to find unless I get it directly from Crest, and even then they don't really have the stuff sitting around. I'd have to get it from a junkyard, yada yada. Bottom line is that I would go for a full box aluminum, which is 3-inch by 2-inch, and I would have to drill not only these holes for the bolts, but I would have to drill a larger hole on top in order to be able to access these bolts. But then I would have a solid surface on the top, solid surface on the bottom, and I can purchase box aluminum, is what they call it, 1/8 inch thick, for $100 per stringer, and that gives us 24 feet. So in other words, I'd be able to get 2 stringers out of one piece of box aluminum. Essentially, the stringers would cost me $50 a pop. Make sense? Okay, so the modifications that are going to happen already is that there's going to be a stringer out here. So and that's because the deck is coming all the way out to the very front of this. Okay, so there'd be a stringer here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. There's going to be an additional stringer here, which is 16. This stringer here is slightly bent from motor weight. You can tell there, see the bow in it? So I would replace that. So that wouldn't be, that would be replaced. And it was bent from motor weight, so I want to put another one on here. So that would be, what did I say, 19? I have to count it up again. But I would need essentially 10 of those bars, $100 a pop. I'm looking at $1,000 for stringers in order to widen it. Now, additionally, towing a boat that is 10 feet wide or thereabouts, and it has to be 10 feet wide because the top, remember, I've got 8 by 10. So I got to choose either a width of 8 feet or a width of 10 feet. If I did 10 feet, I just turn it sideways, and since it's symmetrical on all sides, you wouldn't be able to tell. It would just shorten the length. Bottom line, $1,000 to do that, and the decking material is not available in 10-foot widths, so I would have to alter that as well. When it all boiled down to it, it would cost about $2,500 to widen it. The sponsons would actually be, the pontoons would actually be 9'9" from outside to outside, and the deck would hang slightly over by about 1.5 inches on either side, and I'd have a 10-foot deck on a 9'9" hull on this trailer. The decking material would have to change. There's some other things that have to come into account, like additional weight of a larger deck. It's only about 150 pounds. Anyway, long story short, it really came down to one thing, and that was what it's like to pull a 10-foot wide deck down the road. You see, not all roads are 10 feet wide. Most of them are, but not all of them. But I would need a special license, special permit to tow her in South Carolina. It costs about $100 a year, and I would need a special permit to tow her in Georgia, which is about $150 a year. I might have that reversed. Maybe South Carolina's 150 and Georgia's 100. But bottom line is that I'd be looking at an expense of $250 a year, and I can't tow it at night. I can't tow it on Sundays. It varies per state, but I can't tow it on Sundays, can't tow it at night, and I can only tow it on certain roads, not only physically because the roads can handle it, but legally as well. Now, most people who are towing a boat that has a width of more than 8'6", which is the cutoff point, most people who are towing a boat that is bigger than 8'6", they just kind of fudge it. But I have heard horror stories in that if something happens, i.e. insurance-wise, I could be held legally liable. In fact, probably would. The fines for carrying oversized loads down a road when you're not supposed to can exceed $5 grand. And in some cases, they've had to leave the load on the side of the road, had a wide load company come and pick it up, which is very expensive, and then the trailer and the vessel on top of it becomes impounded. So it is a huge deal to have the right width or the right permitting, and if I do permit it, then I have to go by regulations which I'm not real excited about. So bottom line is, not only is it cheaper to stick with an 8-foot deck, but I think legally it would be a whole lot better of an idea. There's also insurance regulations whenever you go over 8'6". Now I can't do 8'6" because everything is either 8 foot or 10 foot. So long story short, I think she's going to stick to 8 feet. I have located a junkyard that has these. I think I'm going to order the ones that I need, i.e. a new one of these, an extra. There's going to be one here, there's going to be one here, all the way up front. So anyway, this has been a huge ordeal just to get it to the point where I'm working on it. So that's it. An update on Liquid Limo. She's probably going to get a new motor, which is probably going to be very expensive, which I really wasn't looking forward to. Still crisscrossing options there. I'm not really sure what to do with it all, but anyway, 30 by 8 would be very impressive, and it would be towable night, day, weekends, holidays. All those are off if I have it wider. Although there's a fudge factor, because apparently a lot of people are getting away with it, but those people that do not get away with it, they report that there can be big bucks involved and big pains in the neck. And I've got 2 states to go between. So if I leave in the water, I'd go wide. If I left it on Distant Island, I'd go wide. Leaving it on Distant Island on a trailer cost me about $600 a year. Kind of silly when I've got a backyard and other places that I want to go besides Distant Island with it. So I do want it trailerable, which means 8 feet is kind of the magic number. So disappointed about that, to be honest with you, but it sure is a lot easier, a lot cheaper, and a lot more legal. So that's it. Liquid Limo, no motor. If I do keep these stringers, this is her very bottom of the barrel. This is her completely stripped down. This is as far down as she goes from this, and that's why we're here. We're having some welding being done. Here's what is being done. This pedestal right here, this pedestal, is being extended out to here so that deck can come back here. I had to do that rather than just brace it, because the motor pod, assuming that I keep a motor pod, I might even just do a third pontoon with a motor pod built into it, but this motor pod is going to be moving back. It's going to be moving aft quite a bit, and this point here that you see is not going to be connected to that stringer. It's going to be connected to the stringer that sits here, and it needs to be able to support the motor weight. So these are being added on. These parts back here, this stuff, this is being taken off. This small bracket is being taken off. A new bracket is being put on that is much larger. There's going to be a big zinc that sits underwater there. This side is going to get a bracket as well, same deal. That old bracket comes off, the new bracket goes on, and that new bracket is going to house some electronics for the at least a depth finder, probably both a depth finder and a side scanner. Depends upon the electronics that I can afford after all of this is done. She's going to have some other things done. This hook is coming off. I could just straighten it out, but I prefer to kind of get it exactly the way I want at this point, and they are coming off. There's a couple of dings and dents I'm going to ask him to look at. You've already seen the part of the trailer over there that's bent, and he's going to fix that. He's going to work on these deflectors a little bit, so you can see there's a couple little dings and dents and stuff. And you can see this here, this he's actually straightening out this pontoon, and then this comes off. I don't want anybody lifting from those corner points anymore. So dings, dents, all that kind of stuff. That's what he's doing. That's why I'm here. So anyway, rock bottom. This is where she is as far as furthest down she goes. After this, we address the trailer some, and anyway, that's it. Progress on Liquid Limo. Really difficult to look at in this state of affairs, but it's important to know where we came from. All right, that's it.